KK.
Oops, sorry. Call the meeting to order. Would you join me in the pledge? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call the meeting of the Local Planning Agency to order. Can I have a roll call?
Mary Albright.
Steve Coates.
Jamie Seifert.
Sam Kincaid.
On Wynn.
Robert Rennie.
All right. Can I have an approval of the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
I second.
Got it.
We have an approval of the agenda. Can I have did everyone get a chance to read the minutes? If so, can I have a motion to approve?
Rennie makes the motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting.
I second that.
We'll vote. We have accepted the minutes of the previous meeting of June 5th. Is there any public comments?
And if you mind, I interject on this.
Sure.
And by public comments, there's going to be 2 variance hearings tonight. If you plan on commenting on the variance hearing, then actually hold your public comments to that specific hearing, because those are separate individual hearings. This would be more public comments in general about anything on the agenda other than the variance items in the ordinance.
So no one has anything off the agenda. All right. We'll hear the first.
And I'll swear all the witnesses in, actually. So everyone who's here for any of the variance hearings, if you're the applicant or if you're a neighbor who plans on testifying or providing comments, we have to swear you in this time, so if everyone can stand, please raise your right hand. Does everyone swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And you count your name, you don't have to stand, so.
All right, good evening,
And
LPA.
Actually, Tim, I guess before you start, I actually did the ex parte. So it's been a while since we've done a variance, but what I have to do before we actually get into the actual hearing itself is just go and ask each one of y'all if y'all have had any contact with any individuals or received evidence about the matters before you here today, prior to today's hearing. And I'll just go one at a time down the line. And if you have, it's okay. I just have to ask you a couple questions about those interactions, and then you're fine, as long as you limit your decision here today on everything you hear in this room. And so I'll start with you, Ms. Albright. Have you received any ex parte communications?
No.
Mr. Coates?
Nope.
Ms. Seifert?
No.
Okay. Ms. Kincaid?
No.
Mr. Wynn?
No.
Mrs. Zimick?
No.
And Mr. Rennie?
No.
Okay. All right, Tim.
All right, Tim Gibson, the planning supervisor for the city of Fort Walton Beach. First up tonight is a variance request for the allowable impervious and maximum side setbacks at 121 Watson Drive. The subject property, as I said, is 121 Watson Drive, Northwest. On January 14, 2025, code enforcement opened up a case for conducting work without a permit for an accessory structure that was being constructed on the property. On March 31st, 2025, the owner did submit a permit application for the accessory structure. Now this accessory structure is a little over 250 square feet, and per LDC 5.1.2, accessory buildings in excess of 200 square feet in floor areas shall be set back a minimum of 7.5 feet from all side and rear property lines. This accessory structure is sitting at the closest point 3.5 feet from the rear property line. In addition to that, LDC 4.1.1B shows that the maximum allowable impervious surface ratio for the property, which is zoned R1, is 50%. And with the shed on there, They did remove an older shed, and then they built the new shed, which was larger than the older one. And that put them at the end of everything. Their impervious ratio is now sitting at 50.7%. Again, that cap is at 50% for that one. The permit was denied for those reasons, and on April 11th, 2025, the applicant was notified of those issues with the permit, and on April 30th, 2025, they did submit an application for a variance for these things. Now, according to section 8.2.1A of the city's land development code, the purpose of a variance is to provide a means to grant permission to depart from the standards of the zoning district where unique characteristics of a parcel, together with the imposition of specific regulations of the zoning district, result in a hardship. And as you know, there's the 9 criteria outlined in section 8.2.2 of the code, and it does state specifically in there, in order for an application for a variance to be approved or approved with conditions, the local planning agency shall make a positive finding based on the evidence submitted for each one of those 9 criteria. The first of those criteria is that this is due to the unusual or unique physical shape, configuration, or other physical condition of the development site. And that those are not typically applicable to other properties in that zoning district. Staff does find that this property is not unusual or unique in its physical shape or configuration. The property is approximately a 1/4 acre in size and is rectangular shaped. Rough dimensions are 90 feet by 120 feet. It is the same approximate size and shape as many different properties in the neighborhood. This is a corner lot. Like I said, it is 121 Watson. The westerly side property line abuts Baker Avenue Northwest. The next criteria is that the little interpretation and application of the provisions of this LDC would deprive the property owner of property rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district, resulting in an undue hardship. Staff find that this would not be an undue hardship for the property owner. Setbacks, as you know, we've seen several variances for these in the past. These are something that we enforce across all zoning districts, and especially within the R1 zoning district, those are there. In addition, the maximum allowable impervious ratio is strictly enforced due to the potentials for that causing additional flooding issues for neighboring properties. The third condition is that the special conditions are not the result of the actions of the property owner and are not based solely on a desire to reduce development costs. Staff finds that, this new shed was constructed with the knowledge and consent of the property owner and without a permit. In discussions with the owner, he did state that the contractor he hired had told him he did not need a permit to do this, but it is still the owner's responsibility to ensure that that permit was obtained. Fourth criteria is that this shall not provide the property owner any special privilege that is denied to other development sites. And again, those go kind of hand in hand, and other development sites, they were still held to the same setback and same impervious standards as this one, and this would not be anything additional that is not required for those in there. Next is that this is the minimum variance that results in the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. In discussions with the property owner, they did indicate it would be potentially possible to move this shed. Obviously, there's going to be costs associated with that, plus it may not end up in a location where they kind of ideally want it to be, but that was a possibility. The shed's current location is 16.4 feet from the rear of the house, so it is technically possible that shed could be moved 4 feet forward, which would at least move it out of the required setbacks in there. An estimation would be that would also reduce the amount of impervious area enough so that 0.7 would be reduced down to an acceptable amount of at least no more than 50% in there. I don't have the exact math on that one, but it should be enough to reduce it down to that. Sixth criteria is that will ensure compatibility of the resulting development with the uses and land character of adjacent and surrounding neighborhoods. And staff believes that, the setbacks are there to make sure that these are compatible with their neighbors. Don't really want, large structures or whatever sitting right next to your property line if you're a neighbor. That's why we have these things enforced in there. And again, with the impervious ratio, that maximum is there to ensure stormwater is able to be absorbed on that property and doesn't run the risk of running off onto neighboring properties. Seventh is that this is consistent with the intents and purposes of the requirements of the Land Development Code. And in section 1.00.01B7, which is is labeled as the intents and purposes of the LDC, that seventh criteria in there says that the intent is to be equitable in terms of consistency with established regulation and procedures, respecting the rights of property owners while taking into consideration the interest of all the citizens of the city. Again, these are requirements that we restrict on all property owners, and that would not be consistent with those. The eighth criteria is just consistent with the provisions of the comprehensive plan, and staff does find that it is consistent with that. Goal C of our comprehensive plan talks about enhancing properties, and enhancing individual properties is good for the neighborhoods, which is in line with what our comprehensive plan outlines there. The final criteria is that this is not detrimental to the health, safety, or general welfare of the public, and staff does not believe this would be detrimental to any of those. Staff does find that the variance request does not meet the criteria outlined in section 8.2.2 of the Land Development Code, and based on those findings of fact, staff respectfully recommends the local planning agency deny the variance request to increase the maximum allowed impervious surface ratio to 50.7% and reduce the rear setback requirements for an accessory structure in excess of 200 square feet from 7.5 feet to 3.5 feet. And just as a reminder, if the local planning agency approves or denies the application, then the findings of each of the factors listed in section 8.2.2 of Land Development Code will need to be made on the record. And Amber, if you want to bring up the screen. Really the only pertinent attachment with this one is going to be the survey, and more just kind of gives you a visual depiction of where the shed is. This is the one at the north. They have a couple of sheds, or another additional shed on the property, but the one up there where her cursor is right now is the shed in question for this one. As I said, it's set back 3.5 feet at the closest, 3.6 feet on the other side of that. It does meet the side setback requirement. It's just that rear setback that's in question right now. And with that, pending any questions?
Anybody have a question?
I have one question. You said if they moved it 4 feet, it would also reduce the impervious ratio percentage. How did that happen?
So if you can see on there's already a concrete driveway right there. That does, like I said, it impacts, I believe it is a garage on the back there. So yeah, they could theoretically move it down there. That does limit their access into that garage area. But right now it's already a concrete driveway there. So if they slip it down further onto that, they're sliding it off of what would be grass or dirt area there. They'd be sliding it more onto that concrete area. It's already sitting a little bit onto the concrete. But if they slid it further down on there, obviously they're freeing up more pervious areas and putting it over already existing impervious.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
And Tim, actually, you told me one thing, maybe it'll help them for their, in your opinion, was the shed movable?
I'm sorry?
Is it, in your opinion, I think you said that you thought the shed was movable?
I believe it is, just from discussion. I haven't personally put eyes on this. As I understand from discussions with the property owner, it is possible to be moved. I know that they've had a lot of difficulty with the contractor that they hired. They were an out-of-state contractor. From what I understand, they've had difficulty kind of communicating with them in regards to possibly moving it or something like that. I'm not fully privy to that, but I do understand it is movable.
I have one question. So if the shed is under 200 square feet, there's a different setback?
That is correct. Then it's 3 feet.
3 feet, thank you.
So they have that option to make it smaller?
I mean, theoretically, but I mean, this is a built shed already. It's not that they're proposing to build it. I mean, they would end up pretty much demolishing it and rebuilding it into that smaller footprint.
Okay.
Bring one wall in a few feet.
Okay. Any comments from,
The applicant, who's the applicant for this case? This is your turn to speak, sir. Get up here, just give your name, use the microphone, and you're already in the road. So.
I'll have my name in the notes, in the intro, is that okay?
We need it for their audio recording.
Harley Sampson Jr. 121 Watson Drive Northwest for Walton Beach.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the LPA. Thank you so much for your time. As I mentioned, my name is Harley Sampson Jr., and along with my wife, Carmen Sampson, who is at school orientation, we are requesting a 2-point variance for our accessory structure at 121 Watson Drive Northwest. Before I get to the request, let me tell you what led up to today. Prior to moving here, we had a home built in the country. Now, I'm not handy, so to accomplish this, we hired a contractor to handle everything. After what I thought was a relatively painless process, the home was built and our growing family moved in, easy peasy. A few years later, we moved to Florida, and we purchased a home close to our school and my new job. With this home being much smaller than our previous house, it was quite cramped. Last fall, we needed some repairs, so we took out a home equity loan, and with the remaining funds, we decided to replace the rusty old shed that was there. Unlike our previous experience, this little shed build opened up a can of worms and has been a burdensome nightmare for half of this year. The reason we chose the contractor we did was he built on site. Some of these come prefab, this was built on site. Prior to the build, we asked the questions. Is there a setback requirement? Do we need a permit for this size shed? Contractor response, no and no. So we scheduled a time for them to come, and during the build, the same questions were asked. Guess what? Same answers. So at that point, they're on site. The builder asks, where do you want me to place it? And from the exhibit, you can see where it was placed. Partly on the driveway and then, mostly on the grass. So fast forward to the day I received the code letter. And my wife and I are like, what? We didn't do this. And with a large family, we surely couldn't afford the fines of $250 a day. That was the week of the historic snowstorm, so when the office here reopened, I called someone immediately, spoke with 2 wonderful people who said everything would be okay, and then 6 months of meetings, going to the courthouse, uploading documents, talking to 2 engineers, a surveyor, FPL, which they visited the property several times, and then around $1,500 later, here we are. Through all this, like our previous build, we met all requests and followed the rules. So in your documents, you have, as was already outlined, the 2-point request for our, what we consider small minor adjustments. I'd like to acknowledge that, yes, the shed was built without a permit. There was no nefarious intent. It was not to build or not to bypass any rules. I was misinformed by the contractor who said a permit was not required. We're not asking for any special treatment, only understanding. Our lot, while similar in size to others, as was mentioned, is a corner lot, and I believe it limits placement of structures. Locating it would require costly rework and disrupt utilities. There's a power line there that would have to be moved. That's why FPL was out at the property several times, along with a disruption in the existing landscape features. We believe this qualifies as a practical hardship not shared by everyone in the zoning district. Regarding impervious surface, to go from 50 to 50.7%, that's de minimis. We have no drainage issues, so when I'm out there, it seems good to go. As mentioned, if we do have to move it, there would be electrical issues, there'd be a power line issue, and when I was talking to one of the people with the city, because I had submitted some handwritten notes for placement of the shed, if we moved it towards the home, it would look so awkward. You would be opening up the side door and walking out and bam, there's a shed there. And I think if someone was to purchase the property, the value would go down with moving the shed. Importantly, not only are there no environmental impacts, the shed does not negatively affect the neighbors. I've spoken with the neighbors. None of them objected. The shed is in good condition and blends in with the neighborhood. We're simply trying to make reasonable, functional use of our property. Now, in the points here in the agenda or the meeting packet, I want to talk about some of the things. 2.22. So it says staff finds literal interpretation. I understand that, but what about the spirit of what we're dealing with? It talks about hardship here. Someone is defining this hardship for us, and we've lived it for 6 months. All these meetings, the payments, trying to figure out, what to do with it. There has been a hardship. 2.23. I think, although this is literal, I think it's misconstrued. I did not, as I mentioned a couple times, there was no nefarious intent. I was, the last part here says, this is still the owner's responsibility to ensure the permit was obtained. Well, I was assured that I didn't need one, so if I was told that I didn't need one, why would I be pursuing? However, once I received that letter and then started communicating with, like I said, the 2 people I spoke with on the phone during that week in January, and then throughout the late winter and early spring, I did everything that was required. I followed the process. I drove around, met with everyone I had to. I asked all the questions, kind of got a minor degree in this, and here I am. 2.24. I believe the zone we're in, there is no flooding. If it is, it's minimal. And again, with that increase from 50 to 50.7, as I mentioned, that's de minimis. This is not special privilege because this process does exist for other people. 2.25. Again, this has to go with movement of the shed. There is a power line there, which after FPL's assessment probably would have to be moved. So, there's the scheduling for that. And then, I have to pay an electrician to come out and move that. 2.26, as I mentioned, the neighbors are okay with the structure. There's no effect that I have seen on stormwater, and again, it's 50.0 to 50.7, and as was mentioned, it's already partly on a driveway, and I guess the builder did that for stability. We totally understand the city's responsibility to enforce code standards. That said, we believe both of our variance requests are minimal in nature and do not result in meaningful impact to neighboring properties or infrastructures. I'm going to touch on it again. As mentioned, the impervious surface went from 50% to 50.7, minimal. What is within what most engineers would consider a practical margin of error, and it poses no measurable effect on drainage or runoff. Regarding the rear setback, now granted that is a larger change, but in real world terms, there is still an adequate buffer. The structure does not obstruct visibility, doesn't affect neighbors' privacy or contribute to runoff. As for the 2 closest neighbors, both on the north and the east, they're okay with the shed and its placement. We respectfully believe that when considered both statistically and practically, these variance requests do not undermine the purpose or spirit of the city's zoning code, and in fact, they represent a very limited departure that still aligns with neighborhood character, natural resource management, and public safety goals. Approval of the request would mean the world to our family. Thank you for your time.
Hold on. Go ahead.
So I think Tim mentioned that you took a shed down.
A prefab metal one,
Is that the one on the south side?
No, it would have been the northeast corner, so this is a new survey. I was required to get a survey for this year.
So you have 2 sheds on your property?
Correct.
Okay.
As we did in the past.
Any other questions?
And I will say, for aesthetically, this is
much more improved than the one that was taken down.
I
Okay.
have a question. So I know you said two of your neighbors, to the north and to the east, said that they are fine with the shed, but how did the code enforcement, were they notified, or did, by someone in the neighborhood about this, or do y'all just patrol and find?
So our code enforcement do, I mean, they, it's probably about, I don't know, I don't want to make up stats, but roughly 50-50 on, you know, they get a complaint from someone, they go out there, they investigate it, and then they'll start a code case if they need to. The other 50% is they do spend time patrolling, looking for, you know, new construction going up that wasn't permitted. You know, they travel around with a tablet that has access to our permitting software. So if they see some new construction going up that they weren't aware of, they'll just kind of look real quick and, oh, there's no permit for that. They'll typically just kind of stop them and tell them at that point, hey, stop, go get your permit, and then we can go from there.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
And any other individuals speaking on this particular case?
Hello, my name is Angela Hovermail. I live at 120 Watson Drive, Northwest, Fort Walton Beach, Florida. I'm the direct neighbor across the street from them. And this shed is beautiful. It fits in with the neighborhood. There's nothing wrong with it. It's going to make their lives a lot easier. And that, I think, matters also. So, and it would put a hardship on them to move it. His wife and I have tried to brainstorm how we could and stuff like that, and couldn't come up with anything. So, but it is no eyesore on the neighborhood. And it just is beautiful. So, and it is an improvement from what was there. So, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else going to speak on behalf? No? All right. Do we have a motion?
Can I just make one question or comment? For the contractors that don't, or tell customers that they're not required to have a permit when they are, do y'all tell or let these contractors know that they're mistaken so that?
So we can, in this case, it's an out-of-state contractor. We have a lot less control over those. So our building official does have reporting procedures for contractors that are not following the rules, basically. And we do that often for contractors that you know, give misinformation to the clients or lead them down the wrong path. For the out-of-state contractors, it's exceedingly difficult to track them down and get those reported, just because, you know, like I said, all of our reporting requirements in the Florida Building Code deal with the Florida ones. So it's when the out-of-state ones come in, and we do see this a lot, you know, post-storms. Thankfully, we haven't had any of that around here recently, but you'll see a rash of that. If you've ever seen any kind of the post-hurricane areas in there, all of a sudden there's 400 roofing contractors in that city. And it's trying to keep those corralled. A lot of times it is just people, they come in from out of state, they'll tell the homeowner what they want to hear, and then go that way.
I mean, can they be fined if they keep doing something like this? Because it puts the homeowner in a bind if they have to.
It is, and I've spoken with Mr. Sampson, and we've discussed this many times, and he's been great to work with and stuff. I mean, I don't want to throw anything on that one or anything like that, but it ultimately comes down to a civil matter between him and his contractor, because his contractor really put him in this situation. Florida Building Code is really clear on there, and that's why I kind of put on there that, you know, it's his responsibility for the permit. I mean, and that's Florida Building Code. I understand myself, you know, before I started working for the city, I probably would have just listened to my contractor and been like, okay, cool, that's awesome, I don't need this. I understand that, I really do. Unfortunately, Florida Building Code puts that responsibility on the property owner. But, you know, since that contractor put him in this position, you know, that would be a civil matter between him and that contractor if he chose to pursue that.
Okay. Anything else? Do we have a motion?
I motion to approve
the 50.7 impervious addition, and then the 3.5 foot setback.
And are you basing your measurement on all the factors in section 8.02.02 of the land development code?
Yes, and his comments, or their comments.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on it? We'll vote. I couldn't find my mouse. Motion passes 5-2. She turned us off.
If it passes, sir.
Congratulations. I'm sorry that happened. I hope it turns out well. And thank you for coming for him. Our second motion?
So there is
Or
a
our
second variance here.
Second variance, I'm sorry.
It's 616 Powell Drive, and while Tim's doing that, I'll do the ex parte
Thank you.
check with everybody. Mr.
Thank you.
Albright, did you have any ex parte communications about this one? Mr. Coates, Ms. Seifert?
No.
Ms. McKay, Mr. Nguyen, Ms. Ozempic, Mr. Rennie? Okay, so just so it's clear, the entire LPA said they had no ex parte communications for 616 Powell Drive. So whenever you're ready, Tim.
Just ignore what you see on the screen, I didn't fix something.
Hey, good evening again. So the second variance request is the subject property is 616 Powell Drive Northeast, and it's for Kenneth and Catherine Thompson. The property is further described as Lot 8, Block J, first addition to the Country Club Estates subdivision. That subdivision was created on March 25th, 1965, and part of that subdivision, when it was created, states in there that a 5-foot easement for the installation and maintenance of utilities and draining facilities is reserved on all interior lot lines. This is the one, you know, we've seen some of these before in the past. Those are just kind of the blanket ones that were created many years ago. Not sure where utilities were going to go at that time. There are not any utilities in that easement, but the easement does still exist. So for this one, on April 30th, 2025, code enforcement opened up a case for conducting work without a permit for an accessory structure on the property. This was one of the ones they were just driving by. They saw the construction happening in there, and so they did issue the stop work order. There was a lot of communication back and forth between me and Mr. Thompson. You know, as far as like part of it was like the roof was partially constructed. We did work with him on what we could finish out and not finish out and stuff. So he did work with us on doing a little bit more additional work on it, just so that it wasn't in an unsecured state at that time. On May 9th, a permit application for the accessory structure was submitted. The accessory structure is around 620 square feet total. And again, in excess of 200 square feet, that setback requirement is 7.5 feet from side and rear property lines. And this one, the setback issue is from the southern side property line, and it's set back 2.5 feet. In addition, that 2.5 feet puts it inside of that 5-foot easement. So that's the two issues at hand on this one. And on May 9th, 2025, in addition to the permit application, they applied for the variance for this here. Again, I've already gone over the requirements or the purpose of the variance in the previous one. And again, on this one, you know, LPA shall make a positive finding based on the evidence submitted for each of the following provisions. The first is that this is due to the unusual or unique physical shape, configuration, or other physical condition of the development site. And there is nothing unusual about this property. It is approximately 0.27 acres in size and is roughly 90 feet wide. The property is the same approximate shape and size as many properties in the neighborhood. Second criteria is that the literal interpretation and application of the provisions of this LDC would deprive the property owner of property rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district, resulting in an undue hardship Staff finds that the little interpretation of the land development code would not result in hardship to the owner. Again, setbacks are something that is enforced in all zoning districts, including the R1 residential zoning district. And the restriction from installation in an easement is strictly enforced as well, even if there's not the utilities in there. Third criteria is that the special conditions are not the result of the actions of the property owner, and staff finds that the structure was constructed with the knowledge and consent of the property owner and without a permit. Fourth criteria is that approval of the proposed variance shall not provide the property owner any special privilege that is denied to the other development sites within the same zoning district. Staff does find that it would be a special privilege that is denied to other development sites. And again, this is something that we enforce setback requirements on all developments in the city, regardless of zoning district, but for sure in the R1 zoning districts in there. This is not in compliance with 3 separate sections of the land development code. There's the setback section, and then there's actually 2 separate sections of the land development code that reference building in an easement in general, and then as well as building accessory structures in an easement. So there's the 3 separate parts of the land development code that this is not in compliance with at this time. For this one, the proposed variance is the minimum variance that results in a reasonable use of the land, and staff does believe this is the minimum variance that would allow for reasonable. This is a structure that's been built and like has a paver floor and everything on there. It would be impossible to move this really, so this would be the minimum for that one. Next is that the approval of the proposed variance shall ensure compatibility with the resulting development and the use of the land character adjacent and surrounding neighborhood. Staff finds that it is not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. We've looked at the surrounding area and did not find any other accessory structures that were encroaching into any setbacks or into the easements that are across the entire neighborhood. In addition to that one, staff has received several phone calls and emails regarding this particular variance. As you all know, we send out notices to all residents within a 300-foot radius of the property, as well as putting signs on the property itself, and we have received numerous inputs on that one of people objecting to it. I'm not sure who's here in the audience yet. We did have several people indicate they were going to come out and speak in opposition of this variance. And next is if it's consistent with the intents and purposes of the requirements of the LDC. Just like the last one, LDC 1.00.01B7 states being equitable in terms of consistency with established regulation and procedures, respecting the rights of property owners while taking into consideration the interests of all citizens of the city. Next is the proposal of the variance is consistent with the provisions of the comprehensive plan. And again, that goes to the comprehensive plan goal C that talks about enhancing individual properties, that being good for the neighborhoods and in line with that comprehensive plan. The final criteria is that this is not detrimental to the health, safety, or general welfare of the public, and staff does not believe this would be detrimental in that way. With that, staff does find that the variance does not meet all the criteria outlined in section 8.2.2 of the Land Development Code. And based on those findings of fact, staff respectfully recommends the local planning agency deny the variance request to reduce the side setback requirements for an accessory structure in excess of 200 square feet from 7.5 feet to 2.5 feet and eliminate the restriction from the structure being built in an easement. And again, a reminder that if the local planning agency approves or denies the application, the findings as to each of the factors listed in section 8.2.2 of the Land Development Code will need to be made on the record. We do have some pictures of this property. Mr. Thompson and I have been working together on this. He did send me these pictures in to get a kind of a good idea of it. We did have some pictures from code enforcement, but they were obviously from the street. You couldn't really see much. So this is looking easterly, and that's the south property line on the right there. And this is obviously looking over towards that side. Yeah, and there's the survey that shows where that pole barn on pavers, that's the new structure there. This shows it's 2.5 feet off of that south property line. The rear setback is fine on there, but it is that south setback and the easement on that property that is the issue at this time. Pending any questions?
Question is, isn't there a height restriction on secondary structures?
It's restricted to one story. Accessory structure is restricted to one story, with the only exception being if it's an accessory dwelling unit above a detached garage, then it can be 2 stories. There's no specific actual measurement of the height, it's just restricted to one story.
What's 1 story? Is that 16 feet?
At that point, you can get into the Florida Building Code, they do have different restrictions and stuff. It is a range in there,
Okay.
and stuff, so yeah.
So the easement is on the fence line, is,
So the easement is a 5-foot easement on all interior property lines.
Property.
So along the north property line, east property line, and south property line, there's a 5-foot easement. It's not depicted on the survey, but it's just basically a 5-foot U shape, not along Powell Drive around the rest of the property lines.
okay.
So,
And this is a pole barn. Is it enclosed or is it staying open?
No, as I understand, I mean, this is the intent, I believe this is the finished product.
Okay.
For what they're doing, I don't believe they have any intent on closing it in. Like I said, it's got the paver floors, and fans and stuff up in there.
Thought it was a great outside entertainment center, is what it looks like. Yeah,
Yeah, it's just that the south setback is the only issue on there.
okay. Go ahead.
the 7.5 feet, that has to be from the 5-foot
No,
variance?
sir. So setbacks and easements are totally independent of each other. So the setback is 7.5 feet, that's just from the property line. But for example, if this was under 200 square foot, the side setback is 3 feet.
Yeah.
You'd still have to build it at 5 feet because of that easement there. So the setbacks and the easements are different, this just happens to be inside of both of those.
Okay. Any other questions?
If this was a different material for the roof, would that make a difference of how that structure was? Because I know there was something for those a certain type of roof like fabric, it would be different.
Yeah, so really, I mean, it's measured from the wall or basically from the post at this point where the setbacks are measured for, not even the roof overhang. And so that's really what it would come down to, where the poles are placed is 2.5 feet off of that side property line.
Mr. Winter, are you actually getting into the hurricane strength? How we had that one, Mr. Nair's case? Is that what you're?
I think so, yeah.
And I think he's actually asking about the integrity of the roof. Is it built up to code?
Yeah, I believe if it's not, I mean, obviously the permit has not been issued for this, so it has not gone through the inspections. Some of the difference in the case you're referencing there, that was more of a store-bought thing that was engineered a certain way. When these are what we consider stick-built, built on site, they're a lot easier to shore up and make them, capable of standing the requirements in the land development code for the wind speeds.
I don't know if it's hearsay or not, but can you tell us what the objections were from some of the neighbors or some of the surrounding people?
No real specific ones, just it's a large structure, being, over 600 square feet. It was more seemed to be just that the large structure is pretty tall, considering, and just the closeness to the edge of the property line was just the general concerns I received from people. Nothing real specific.
In the future, you can include those in the packet. That would be evidence, actually. So
some of this came in more recently
Okay.
than after, we have to submit this several weeks in advance of these things, and so some of these things came out more recently than that.
When you say numerous, give me a range.
I believe I
100?
received 3.
3, okay. Okay,
And just being honest, well, I'm not sure if they're connected or what, but we did have received the 3 complaints.
okay. All right, thank you. This is the time for the owners to come up and state your name and address, please.
Kenneth Thompson, 616 Powell Drive, Fort Walton Beach.
Thank you.
I do want to start by saying I'm in no way blaming the city for this. I know that it was my fault by not pulling the permit. I do understand now that I needed to pull a permit. I thought by building my own structure by myself that I could not have to pull a permit. I did all the work myself, except for my brother had to help me with some of the big poles. But I built this structure. I had to get some water. I built the structure because I have family here. I built it for entertainment. I have both my daughters are here. They have grandkids that come over at least twice a month for cookouts and parties, and I've been wanting to do this for years, and this is something I've always wanted to do. And I did it, and obviously I did it without y'all's permission. I apologize for that. I know now that I need to build, or when I do build something, I need to have a permit. This structure is definitely not movable. It is built solid as I can build it. They're 6x6 posts, 4 foot in the ground. There's probably 300 pounds of concrete on each post. I've built it very structurally sound. It's not going anywhere. As far as the height goes, it's no higher than my home. So as far as the roof goes, and before I even built this, I went to my neighbor Jim, where the 2.5 feet is. I knew it was going to be close over there because I have a swing set there that I have in the ground with poles for my grandkids to swing on. So I moved that. I had to move it over as far as I could. So before I even built it, I asked Jim. I said, Jim, is this your forever home? He said, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I said, well, this is my plan. This is what I'm going to do. Do you have any objections to that? And he said, no. He said, it sounds great. Sounds like a great entertainment place. So my neighbor Jim, where I'm impeding, he had no issues whatsoever with it. And still doesn't. I did bring him to verify that, to talk to y'all if you have any questions for him. But this is going to be where I put my grill, my smoker. I love to cook out. I love to entertain. And this is something I've wanted to do for a long time. I just bought the house 8 years ago or so, 7 years ago. And I've been saving up to build this. It would be devastating for me to have to take this down. As far as the like 2.1, I can't say anything about 2.2. I can't say anything about 2.2.2. I can't say anything about structural knowledge and consent of the property owner. Yeah, 2.23 I can't do anything about. But 2.24. The staff finds that this variable provides applicant a special privilege. Well, I don't feel like it's a special privilege. To be honest with you, I drove around my neighborhood, and without giving, I have no need to give anybody addresses or anything. But there's other people in the neighborhood that aren't 5 feet. I mean, I'm not the only one, but I'm not here to blame, take blame away from me or anybody else, but. I stopped counting at 12. I drove my bike around and I stopped counting at 12 other people that have structures that are within 5 feet, not closer to the fence than 5 feet. So to remain 2.25, I'm good there. And the 2.26 again is my neighbor Jim. Behind his house, his neighbor behind him has a gazebo. And the gazebo roof is almost hanging over his fence. And he went on vacation for 2 weeks, that's what he told me. He comes back, and this gazebo is built. And he didn't complain or call anyone. But, and I saw that gazebo built that close to the fence, so why can't I do it? I just did it myself, So I have a picture of it if y'all want to see it. But there's a gazebo right in his backyard, and the roof is almost coming over his fence, his property. So all I'm asking is, if we do it for one, do it for all. I don't know. I'm just very nervous. I just hate to have to take this thing down. Would you like for Jim to come up and talk? That's all I have. Yes, ma'am.
You have a question? So, Tim, it's those posts closest to the fence. Those posts would just have to come in a couple of feet, correct? Because that's where you're measuring.
So it would be a little more complicated than that. So like I said, the setbacks are measured from basically where the wall or those posts would be. I think I understand what you're saying. If the post could move and leave the roof where it is, we do have restrictions on the maximum amount of roof overhang that is allowed on there. So really that would not be a possible solution to this. It would essentially have to be shrinking the whole thing. Because as you can see, the roof overhang is on there and stuff. So if you start moving it, you're gonna have exceedingly larger roof overhangs that are not allowed in code. And plus, I don't know what that would do to the structural capacity of the
Any other questions? Okay. Thank
Would you like
you.
my neighbor to come up and speak?
Please.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Schulteis. I live at 614 Powell Drive. I'm on the other side of the fence here that you see. About probably a month before Kenny started building this, he came over and said, he asked if I'm planning on moving. And I said, no, it's going to be, you'll have to move me out when the time comes. And he told me that he wanted to build this for his kids and his grandkids. I know them, they come over to my house even. And he said that's what his plan was, and I went over in his backyard and he literally laid out exactly what it was going to be, what the plan was, and where his smoker's going to be, and he had a sink and all this stuff that he's buying. And I had absolutely no problem with it. I think this looks very unfinished, and he does plan to enclose it on several sides, and also run a gutter across the side of the, probably on both sides, but certainly on the side here with my fence, so that there wouldn't be any water runoff into my yard. I was over there many times as he was working on this, and I was amazed at how deep he was going on the post. I mean, these are big posts, and he said 300 pounds of concrete in each one. I think it's probably more than that. And he's out there mixing this stuff himself. I mean, he basically did this whole thing by himself. I volunteered to come over. I'm a little older than he is, so he said I didn't have to, but he's had a couple of his relatives just help him lift the stuff up. But I'm confident that if the variance is given, and obviously you're going to have somebody come over to inspect the integrity of the structure, this is going to pass code. I mean, it's built really solid.
Any questions for him? No? Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it.
And Mr. McGann, there's other folks out there too.
Okay.
So-
Anyone else? If you would give us your name and your address.
My name is Dolores Bentley. I live at 620 Powell Drive. I'm not real familiar with the procedures here, my first time. I do have a problem with hearing, so I didn't get all the explanations clearly. But I do know that is more than 1 story high. I think the gentleman has previously had a nice camper. Don't know if he still has that. He now has a really nice looking big boat. This particular building is normally built to cover recreational vehicles. It's super high. You can see it from the street, from the sidewalk, and it is definitely way close to the property line of the next people. Having been involved with bad weather before, any little wind can gust up and blow that over into neighbors' yards. And it is not a very attractive building, but I just have a feeling that he's building that to store his boat in, to get it out of the weather, where he has it on the side of his house. When he brought in the pavers, the neighbors all thought he was putting the pavers on the side of his garage to make it more secure to park his boat on, which a lot of people I'm sorry. I can't get it turned off. Can't get it turned off. All this new technology I'm not too good at. But anyway, and also when he began building the facility, it was reported to the city. He did not have a permit. Apparently the city went to him and talked to him, and to put it in nice words, he told them to go fly a kite, and he continued to build it. And I think that he's a businessman, he knows there are codes. Anytime you build something, you have to go get the permit beforehand and make sure it's okay to do it, not just ask your neighbor if it's okay to build it. And I think it needs to be in the consideration of what your decision is.
Thank you.
May I respond to some of that?
In a minute.
In a minute.
Is there anyone else that is going to speak? Any other neighbors?
No.
Okay. The applicant.
Go ahead.
I just want to say that I don't know where she said that I told anybody from the city to fly a kite. I would never ever do that. I was building this thing and I got a letter in the mail. As soon as I got the letter in the mail, I ceased what I was doing. I didn't do a thing to it after that. And I never ever told the city in any way, shape or form to go fly a kite. I don't know what she's talking about. I have no idea. I did have a fifth wheel. I sold my fifth wheel because we don't go traveling very much anymore. And my daughter parks her boat in my driveway because she doesn't have a house to have a driveway and park a boat in there. But there's no way I can even put a boat or anything back. It's not, you can't even fit anything back in my backyard. So I don't know where that's coming from. But I never ever said anything like that whatsoever. Never.
Thank you.
And never would.
If I can add on to that real quick, I can't speak to what was done before or after any kind of notifications from code, but as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Thompson did reach out to me while we were going through the variance process. We were coming into the hurricane season, obviously. He did express some concerns about the roof not being as secured as he wanted it to, but he was under the stop work order. And he did work with me asking for permission to go up there and finish securing that. And again, I worked with the building official. He said he was okay with that, just for obvious safety reasons and everything in that one. Again, I'm not saying that work didn't happen after the thing. The staff obviously has our assessments and findings on this thing, but yeah, he did reach out to me before he finished up the work on the roof.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee or the public? All right. Do I have a motion?
I just have a question.
Sure.
From the lawyer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Jeff, can we do like an amendment to this? Like, if this passes, like approve this if it passes code inspection for hurricanes? Because I do believe there is a
I can handle
like
that.
a hurricane.
Yes. Yeah.
So the variance is basically to the location. This still has to go through the full permit process. If
But you
this
can do it.
is not, so our building official will still have to review all the plans, approve the permit. They will go out there and they will do physical inspections on the property. I don't know, some of the times it gets a little more difficult after the fact ones because of like the concrete that's in the ground, how much of the post is in the ground. Sometimes but our building official, I mean, that's what they're trained to do, is make these assessments on whether or not this thing would withstand storms, and it's built to the Florida Building Code requirements.
The answer is yes, you can.
Yeah.
So, you actually, yes, you can. So, but, yeah.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I had one other question. So the edge of the roof is in the easement. How far back would if that's east, this would be south. So how far up the roof line would the roof have to be cut not to take down the entire structure if you could modify it?
So the roof line's not really what's measured. All the setbacks and everything are measured to the wall or those posts in this case.
Okay.
So theoretically, it would not be the roof line that would have to move. I mean, the post would have to move. I think it's 2.5 feet right now, so obviously they would have to move another 5 feet there, and the roof going with it, basically. So the entire structure would almost have to shift 5 feet for that to meet the setback requirements in there. Because again, it's 12 to 18 inches is what the maximum roof overhang is allowed to be. I believe is the range in there and stuff. So again, even if you move those posts another 5 feet, well, you can't obviously have 6 feet of roof overhang.
No, that's why I
getting at. that, yeah, so the whole thing would have to shift, but it's really measured from the walls or the posts.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, go ahead, Mary.
If this had been the 200 square foot, would that have mattered or made it less encroaching?
So obviously it'd be less, yes, so, but I mean, the easement is still 5 feet, it would have been well within that. The setback at that point, if it was under 200 square foot, would have only been 3 feet. And they still would have been inside of that, obviously not as much at that point. But it still would have been encroaching in there. But
There's quite a few neighborhoods, though, in the city that do have these utility easements that have never been vacated, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, there's a whole process to go through to actually vacate an easement. It's rarely done. I mean, obviously the city typically won't support vacating those even unless they get kind of like for like, because you know, what is the future going to be? You know, what utility is going to be coming out the next 10 years that everybody's going to need to survive on? We really just don't know, and just kind of having those options in there, the city likes to maintain that if possible. They're not super strict on them and stuff because I mean, obviously there's nothing there, hasn't ever been a need for it. But typically they don't give up easements unless there's a real need for it. That's why even on this one, if this is granted, the easement does not go away. So the easement is still there, and if the city were to come in, you know, 10 years from now and say, okay, we need to come and bury a new water line here, well, it would have to be removed at that point at the owner's expense, because the easement does still exist.
Gotcha. But if the home sells, the variance stays.
That is correct. This will be recorded with the property.
Right.
But the future owner still would have the same risk.
Would have the same risk, yes. But a lot of variances are only for the owner in some instances.
They run the property most of the time, not the owner. So I think
in our area,
I think I've only ever seen it maybe done one time, actually on the owner itself. So that's and not for all neighbor.
Yeah.
Tim, is there an easement restriction on driveways?
I'm sorry?
Is there an easement restriction on driveways?
No, so easement restrictions are for structures, flat work, driveways, sidewalks, that kind of stuff, patios. Those are allowed to be in easements. Just simply, I mean, because it all really comes down to if we need to go and trench a thing through there. It's a lot easier to just trench through and repair a driveway than it is to repair a building.
Yeah.
And I can give you
the structure in there.
A practical application. Actually, they actually ran into this problem a few weeks ago. The Public Works Department had to contact me, and they actually, some people were out of town, and they went in there and they knocked their sheds down like this because they needed to build. They're doing that major project over there on the storm water off of Martesa, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had to actually do that. I think they eventually, last month, they were able to get a hold of the guy. I think he works on oil rigs, but it's a real risk that people run in the future that, you know, we don't think it will be used today, but it might be used in the future.
Burden on a future homeowner, for sure.
Okay. All right, I need a motion.
And Mr. Coach, just go back, you can put a condition, you can do conditions on a variance if you want it.
I motion to approve the easement.
We have a motion to, first.
What are you talking about?
Do I have
To approve
he
an
has a-
easement?
Can
or-
you state
Yes.
the variance name? All right.
I motion to approve the two and a half foot setback. Is what you're asking for, right?
I believe there's a second, is there a second?
So the variance is really for two things. One is to reduce the side setback from 7.5 feet to 2.5 feet. And the second is to allow a structure to be located within an easement.
And it's 4.1, page 22, that would be the.
That's the number we need.
I motion to approve the variance request to reduce the side setback requirement for the accessory structure and to 2.5 feet and eliminate the restriction for structure being within the easement.
Is this based on all the factors found in 8.02.02 of the Land Development Code?
And do we have a second?
Rennie will second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. The motion does not carry.
So you'll need to make another motion, either to deny it or to grant partial variance. And if y'all do deny it, you'll need to pick the ground that you're denying it on, and say that on the record.
If you pick a partial variance, explain.
Well, partial variance, you could say we're not comfortable with the 5-foot easement, so we're only going to give them an easement of 2.5 feet as opposed to 5 feet, because it will allow them to approach some into the easement, but not all the way. Or maybe I put that backwards, Tim. They would get maybe.
A lot of times on these, I'll kind of bring actual different orders and ask you guys to vote on them separately because they're two separate items, like a variance to the easement restriction and then a variance to the setback restrictions. On this one, I just created as one order. We can modify that however we want to. That's just kind of what I pitched in there because it was kind of it seemed like more of an all or nothing. If you're going to approve the setback, well, that automatically approves the easement thing there. If you're going to not approve the easement, well, the whole structure's still going to have to move anyways. So whether you're shifting the whole thing 2.5 feet or 5 feet was there. But theoretically, if you did want to say, okay, I'm comfortable with it, but not that close, you can pick a number and say, I vote to approve the easement with a 4-foot setback and be in the easement, or a 7-foot setback, or you can really establish whatever you want that new setback number to be. Essentially, the variance is establishing a new standard in the LDC. Right now, that standard is 7.5-foot setback. You can create whatever that standard you want it to be, if that makes sense.
Also, you put conditions. I know they indicated maybe they want to close part of it, or at least that's what the neighbor indicated. You can almost, I've seen this before in some other cities where there was a big concern on short-term rentals on sheds, and they said, we'll grant you your setback variance, but you, on the condition that you never have a short-term rental located in that shed that has electricity and water running to it. And so y'all have a lot of power actually to craft your some conditions and also to do a partial variance like Tim said.
I guess I have more issues with something closed in because I think that's going to be a livable type of unit in some of the neighborhoods. And to help out, I think the openness of the pole barn is much more easily for air, wind to go through and not create a permanent looking structure out there to look like a house in a backyard.
If that was your concern, I mean, it is, you could make like Mr. Burns was explaining there, you can add a condition on there that you make a motion to approve the variance as presented, with the condition that the building never be enclosed, or that no sides can be enclosed, or no more than one side. You can add those types of conditions onto there. Obviously, I'd have to redo the order. I need you to sign it at a later time, but those, really, the sky's the limit. I mean, you can put restrictions on there or set whatever you want it to be with these variances.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the variance with the structure having no more than one side enclosed.
And you're basically on all the factors?
All the factors
Okay.
that we did previously.
I'll second that.
Was that Mr. Sterling?
Pardon?
just so I'm clear, your motioning is to approve the reduced setback to 2.5 feet and the approval to be in the easement.
Correct.
As long as no more than one side is ever enclosed.
Correct. The motion does not pass. I guess I need to know the difference of what we've been hearing today. And
I make a
somebody
motion
needs
to deny the variance and make the setback comply with the 7.5. Is that what it is, 7.5 foot?
This, as it sits right now with that size, this minimum setback would be 7.5 feet.
And
That's
Ms.
my-
Zucker, just because this is the first time y'all are doing this, and just so you make the motion correctly, just take a moment, since you're in the process of doing this, pick one of the factors that is, you have the agenda packet in front of you for this particular article. So the factors start under section 2.2.
You have to give the reasoning for your,
And so you need to just pick
Your
one of
motion.
those reasons as the factor as to why you're not granting the variance. And you can take a moment.
Yeah, I think I backed up too far to the first one.
I can bring you my copy if you'll speak. What copy?
No, I'm here, wait, I'm here. So what am I supposed to do?
you have to come up with a
I'll
reason
bring this to you
into
since it's
your
the agenda.
motion that says, I move to deny this motion on the grounds of,
Okay, so you would pick one of the, you can pick more than one if you want, but you would say, I don't believe it meets this condition, and just say why you don't find it meets one of these conditions. And I'll leave this with you.
Well, based on 2.2.3, it was conducted without a permit. Is that fine?
That's one, if you have more, you can list them too. It's-
No, that's enough. I guess. It's the first time I made a motion, sorry.
No, take your time.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there a discussion?
And y'all can discuss the
Can-
factors and flush it out a little
Can you
more.
tell me why this motion is different than the first motion? The first
I voted no on that
pass.
one too.
And the reason, just because they have
Just
no permit?
because I've never built anything, but I have the common knowledge that if I'm going to build something, I have to go to the city and get a permit. And that's why I voted no on that one, and that's why I'm voting no on this one. Like, I know that if I'm going to build something, I have to go to the city first and make sure that what I'm going to build is going to comply with the codes.
If I can, and Mr. Burns, please interject if I'm going down the wrong road here. We have to be very careful on comparing variance to variance as well. Your
I
decisions
understand.
have to be made strictly on the facts presented for this variance. Not on what was done previously,
Right.
not what was done in previous meetings off of this specific variance.
Any other comments? So if you vote yes, you are voting to deny.
Correct. If you vote yes on this motion, you're passing the motion to deny the
All right.
variance.
And we had a second?
I second.
You, Mary? All right, let's vote. Motion passes. All right.
Next item is the ordinance number 2189. This is an ordinance to the City Council of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 9 of the Land Development Code to update the process for handling subdivision plat requests to comply with Florida statutes, provide for authority, provide for severability, provide for an effective date. This is a quasi-legislative hearing. I believe Mr. Gibson is handing the reins off to his successor to take over.
Hello, good evening.
Nelsonville, city planner. Michelle. Back on June 20th, 2025, Governor DeSantis signed Senate Bill 784 into law. The bill amends Section 177.071 of the Florida statute pertaining to the approvals of plats and replats. This did go into effect on July 1st of 2025. The previous section of 177.071 Florida statute designated city councils as the authority responsible for approving plats and replats. The statute now requires that the city council to delegate the plat and replat authority to an administrative official who will be responsible for approving, conditionally approving, and denying proposed plats and replats. To ensure that we are in compliance with the updated requirements of Section 177.071 of Florida statute, staff is proposing the following amendments to the Land Development Code. So the first one is LDC Section 9.01.01, types of applications and entities responsible for recommendation and final decision. This has been revised to eliminate references to specific types of plats and reflect that they are now staff level decisions. LDC Section 9.01.11, procedures for plats or replats, that has been added to establish the procedural requirements in accordance with the updated statute, as adding the development administrator is designated as the approving authority, and also the timeline for the initial and subsequent application reviews that's also been established. The last one is LDC Section 9.04.01. It has been updated to remove preliminary or final subdivision plats from the list of applications types that are required for public notice. So with that, staff respectfully recommends the local planning agency recommend that the City Council adopt ordinance number 2189, which amends the Land Development Code provisions regarding plat or replat review and approval to be consistent with the amended Section 177.071 Florida statute.
Are there any questions?
Like when you do a subdivision plat, or someone's going to put in a subdivision and the plat is placed out how it's divided out?
It's like a parcel of land?
Yes.
Okay.
You have one parcel of land, but
How we section each, how we sell each parcel.
So like in the earlier one, when we talked about the subdivision, we identified the creation of that subdivision as a plat.
Okay.
I think the plat was even in one of the various packages, so if you want to go back.
It was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so that's,
They don't all have to be that big.
I'm from the north, so we don't call them plats.
What we do here.
And who is the development administrator?
that's right now it's the growth management director. So it would be Chris Versetti or
it'll be Mr. Gibson.
Mr.
and
Gibson.
2 weeks now.
A little over a week.
Well, yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Stealing my thunder for the
So,
planning supervisor.
Okay.
so does this not allow for the public to be notified or input in, okay.
Straight administrative process now.
It's already gone into effect as of July 1st of 2025. This is just updating our land development code to reflect that.
So we're just signing off on it, basically.
It's a formality.
The state actually is requiring this, so this is just updating the state requirements.
So we can say no.
It doesn't
You can say
matter.
no.
And they'll do it anyway. They'll do it anyway.
Formality.
Yeah.
Can I, so how does this bypass the sunshine law? I mean, to me, we want to conduct government and have visibility to the public, and this looks like we're moving something from the counter and putting it in the closet, just as a theoretical. I mean,
So the state legislature creates the sunshine law, and they give it and they take it away. Here they're taking away. They're saying councils no longer get to be involved in the plat process, and they're the ultimate decision makers on the sunshine law. So they created it, they create all sorts of exceptions. They're taking this out of the council's purview. So that's kind of, they can arbitrarily do what they want.
And if I'm a party and I want to appeal what has been decided, where does it go if it's been stepped down from the city council? Do I appeal to the city council?
So most likely you'd be an applicant, you're saying, if you apply. There is an appeals process, an administrative appeals process that actually comes before. But it comes before this board.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
And if your decision, they desire to appeal, it goes into the circuit courts. It does not go to the city council, even if that administrative decision is appealed.
So like any decision Mr. Gibson would make, actually theoretically can be brought before y'all.
That's correct.
Okay. I want to know which shell the P was under. I got it. Thank you. I got it.
All right, do I have any other questions? Do I have a motion?
Let's say this correctly, right?
Right. It's 2189 ordinance.
Right, so I make a motion that we accept ordinance 2189 as proposed in our minutes, correcting the sections of the Fort Walton Beach city regulations to make them compliant.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes. Is there any supervisor's report? Would you like to?
Surprise. So, yeah, now Mr. Frasetti has accepted another position in a different city. So he will be moving on next Thursday as his last day, and they have selected me to move up and be his replacement. So
Congratulations.
that happening. Amy here has been an outstanding addition to our planning team, has been a planner with us for several years now, and she has graciously accepted the position to move up as the planning supervisor. So for the bulk of these LPA meetings, she will be the presenter in these. I'll probably be attending with her for the first several that she handles, just until she's more comfortable with it. But yeah, she's going to be your primary contact from now on.
And we wish Chris good travels and hope this is good for him. Tell him congratulations. Is there any board reports?
Tim, are they going to remark this parking lot?
There's a lot of discussions around that, yes.
I pulled in, I was like, where are the parking spots at?
Oh, we're having a parking problem over here. I'll give him some coaching.
I just made my own. I'm like, yeah, this looks good.
All right, anything else down here?
I do have one more thing. So we've been, since I've been on the board here, we've been doing a lot of the variance, like adjustments, specifically the easements, so on and so forth. Is there a plus or minus, like 10% written into the variance code anywhere to where it doesn't have to come to the council?
With easements, no. Easements are kind of a hard set thing in there. For setback restrictions, there is a variance in there. So essentially what it is, we cannot approve a permit that does not meet setbacks. However, if somebody comes in and says, I'm going to build this house, this new house, and it's going to be set back 7.5 feet from the sides, and they go out there and they start building and they pour the foundation, and the foundation is 7.5 foot on the sides, but then when they add the bricks on the outside of it, well, now they're at 7.4 feet from the sides. As long as it's less than a 10% encroachment into that setback, again, the plans have to be approved meeting setbacks, but if after the final as-built is set, it's less than a 10% encroachment in there, it can be done through an administrative waiver, is what it's called. So kind of like a mini variance. It's a much easier process. That goes to the development administrator for the decision on that one to make on there. But again, there's a few things outlined as far as the administrative waiver process on there, but for setbacks, that's what it would be for the 10%.
Is it the same thing for the impervious ground?
Well, that was more than 2%.
The impervious ratio, yes.
Because it was
So
0.7.
there are, again, there's
There's a
different
one.
criteria in there for different things. There can be reductions sometimes to a parking requirement of up to 10% of that. There can be for the impervious ratio, I believe. I'll have to get back with you 100% on that one. There's like 4 or 5 criteria in there that can be waived slightly. But again, those are the very small waivers. For sure, anything once it gets more than that 10% in there, there's no waiver for it.
It's probably not 10% of the ratio, though. I think it's probably smaller.
Yeah, it would definitely be smaller. I want to say that it's not allowed an administrative waiver for the impervious, but I don't want to say that 100%. It would definitely be less than 10%.
Since you opened this door, so if somebody wants to build a house on a property and there are no easement constraints, has the city changed the setback requirement from 2000 to it's different today? Because my observation is we're building larger homes on smaller pieces of property in the Ferry Park neighborhood. So, my house is 10 feet from the property line, and I see this mega mansion that just went up, and it's 5 feet from the property line, and I'm like, ooh, did this change, or is this just a bigger house, and they could have put a bigger house on a piece of property when they built mine? I'm just curious.
So the setbacks are going to depend on the zoning district, primarily for the R1 single-family zoning district, I believe is what you're referring to. Those setbacks are always a 25-foot front setback, 25-foot rear setback, 7.5-foot side setbacks for interior property lines, and 15 if it's abutting a right-of-way. So if it's a corner property, the interior 7.5 feet, the side adjacent to the road would have to be set back 15 feet from that side property. I can tell you for certain, in 2012, that was the last major rewrite of our land development code. There have been no changes in there since then. I would have to do some research to see what they were pre-2012. I believe they were still with the 7.5 foot side setbacks at that time.
I got it. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the note.
All right, any other comments? Motion to adjourn?